So, oh, I stopped my video instead of sharing. Let me try and answer your question. So like for f-string interpolation, what f-string interpolation is for combining a variable into some sort of string. So if I have a variable, my var equals 42, and let's say I wanted to print out my age is 42. So there are several ways to do this. So I could do print my age equals is, and then type my var. So my age is 42. Move the space. I could do what is it? Dot format. This. I need my square brackets. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, James. My age is 42. And then you could also do, this is new in Python 3. This is the way that I will do it. So my age is, and I forgot my F at the beginning. And my var. So my age is 42. If you're working with someone that's using Python 2, you should probably have a little talk with them because no one uses Python 2 anymore, but there are still people that use it. And this will throw an error on their computer. So this used to be kind of the preferred format in Python 2, but now this is the preferred format, in my opinion. So that's kind of the way that I'll use F strings.
So let's say that you wanted to pull, like, let's say instead of my variable, you have a list.
Okay.
Right? Up on top instead of 42. So you could put, I don't know, let's pretend.
So is it a list of integers or?
Oh, no, I'm thinking of a dictionary. So I'm thinking of a dictionary, which doesn't apply to this sentence at all.
Okay.
But like if we were pulling from a dictionary, you know, you'd have to create an entire dictionary. But to access whatever it is in the dictionary, you would do the same formatting, right?
Yeah, so let me make just a quick thing.
Okay. It doesn't, the sentence doesn't have to make sense.
So my name is Jeff, my age is 42.
Okay, that's fine.
So if I wanted to like just grab the age, I would need to add that. I'd need to add the key to it. So.
Oh, it just made sense. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And then formatting it, you do, see, that's where I'm kind of getting tripped up, is when you use the curly brackets, when you use the round brackets, and when you use the square brackets in that formatting. So it will come with repetition, knowing how to do that.
Yeah, with dictionaries, to grab the key, you'll always use square brackets. But then when making a dictionary, you use curly brackets. So it is
right. Understood. Yeah. But with F-string interpolation, do you always use the curly brackets?
Yeah, you do have to always use curly brackets.
Okay.
Yeah, the F-string takes from the dot format, and instead of having the chain on this dot format, you just put the variable in the curly brackets.
Right.
Something you may notice right here is I have single quotes, and then I put double quotes inside. If I would have done single quotes, it would have given me an error. Okay, I think this part's the string, and then it's all confused.
Oh, that's probably too why it wasn't working for me.
Okay.
Because I've tried it on several different labs, you know, just to practice using it, and it keeps throwing that jacked up error. And it's because of that right there. It's F to fix that, yeah, you would change one of those.
Yeah, just when you're doing an F string, you see how everything is in red. If I do a single quote, you'll see that stuff stops turning red and it doesn't look as pretty. So like that, this should throw kind of a red flag when something is like this. Should all be red.
Okay.
Well, cool. No, good questions. Hopefully, I think that was useful for everybody too. Yeah, thanks for asking all those questions.
Yeah, sorry to sidetrack. It's just things as I'm working through the labs that are popping up and they're blocking me.
Yeah.
And I get stuck.
Like they say, if you have that question, I guarantee someone else had that question. So, cool. So I'm going to be going over some stuff from section 3 today. I'm going to be going over looping, using a dictionary, so we'll get some practice with that. Using break statements, nested for loops, and then I'm going to finish it up with going over functions. So we got this scenario. Everyone's been to like Costco or Whole Foods or here in I'm in Kansas City, so I shop at Hy-Vee. And you're wondering how much do you spend. So today we're going to have a grocery list of items, and to do this, I'd like everyone to open a Jupyter notebook because I'm going to have you kind of go through this on your own. I'm going to copy all this down. So we have 2 lists. And we're going to create a loop that prints out each item and then says, I need to buy. So I need to buy cheese. Then I need to buy whole milk. Then I need to buy, not sure what that is. I need to buy tofu. I need to buy kale. And I need to buy oranges. So I'm going to put this in the Zoom chat, this list, so you don't have to type it all out. Where is it? More chat. So if you could try this out. So you want a for loop, and then I'm going to go through it. So this is, wants to say, I need to buy cheese, I need to buy whole milk, I need to buy kefir, I need to buy tofu, I need to buy kale, oranges, ham, and Ben and Jerry's. And I'll give you everyone 2 minutes, starting now. Another 30
There's
seconds.
a syntax, just so you know, you guys, on the item list. You should, because Jerry's has that one apostrophe, so you need to have those in double quotes for the items. Oh, never mind. Sorry. But Jerry's is throwing, I'm getting an error list on line 1.
Yeah.
because of Jerry's.
Yeah, you are right.
So do you do like a /S?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do double quotes. Like that. Let me move this to a new line. You see what I did there? All right. Well, I'm gonna spend 2 minutes. I'm gonna go through this. Did anyone want to share what they did?
I'll share. Mine's wrong. I got an error loop, but I'm not ashamed.
Okay. No,
Did anybody get it right?
That's how we learn.
Okay, good.
So yeah. Walk me through what you did.
All right. So for item, in items, print item.
In the next line.
And I'm pulling from that. It costs, and then I want it to pull from that.
So print item, and then is it like this? It costs.
So I want to buy this item. It costs whatever, right? So I want to buy cheese. It costs $2.79.
Okay. I see what you're saying. So one thing to be careful with. So this items list, we're just looping through items right now. So we don't have anything related to costs.
Oh, okay.
So I think I have you do that actually later in the next step.
Oh, okay.
No, you're ahead of the game right now.
Sorry.
No worries.
So what do you want me to do? What's the goal then on this step? I'm sorry.
It's just I want it to print. I want to buy cheese. I want to buy whole milk. I want to buy kefir and tofu. I don't think I explained it very well. So something like this. I want to buy. Does that make sense? What I did here?
Yeah.
We can go a step further and say like print. I need to buy and make it like a checklist. So I need to buy cheese, whole milk, kefir, tofu.
Okay.
Cool. So now we're gonna take that to the next level. Oh no, we're not. Sorry. We're gonna this time we want to loop through the name of the item, the amount of the item. So that's what we're wanting to do. What you just did. Loop through both of them, and we want to get the total grocery bill at the end. So I don't know if you have gone through this in the course, so I'm going to show you how to zip a list. So what a zip of a list does, it combines two lists, or something that you can iterate over, and allows you to iterate over it at the same time. So you start with the exact same way you do with a for loop, and start with two variables. I call it item and cost in zip. Item cost. Item cost. So this prints out cheese, it prints out milk, whole milk, and prints out the item and then prints out the cost. So this cost variable is the amount. This item variable is the name of the item. So I can use zipping a list allows me to iterate through both the lists at the same time. Does that make sense?
I have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
If they're different lengths, the lists, would that affect zipping it?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let's try. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Nope, I think it, if I remember right, it won't throw an error. I'm not sure. Item 1, item 2, and zip X and Y. Yeah, so it stops when it no longer has a match.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have lists of different links, I don't know, can't think of like of an idea. I'm sure there is. So good question. So now let's say I want to clean this up a little bit, and using f strings. So I need to item. And it costs anybody know what I'm doing wrong?
I don't think you have an
Because you have the zip
end quote.
function.
I don't have the end.
There it is. Never mind. I see it. It's there.
Well, isn't the list items with an S?
So right now you have item cost for zip item cost. You have cost twice. Is one of them supposed to be costs? What was the name of the cost list?
Oh, you're right. Good call. Oh, no, that I made my variable cost. So don't name your variables the same thing you name the list, or you will get errors. I'm gonna call this costs. Make it plural as well. That makes more. There we go. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna add a $sign as well. So I need to buy cheese, it costs $2.79. I need to buy whole milk, it costs $3.42. So this is using zip lists. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? I didn't actually solve this part, so I'm gonna do that next. So I have this variable cost that corresponds to each of the costs of the item. I'm just gonna check something real quick. Costs, the first element of costs, and it looks like it's an integer because I need to find the total grocery bill. I just want to verify that. It's an integer, it's a float, I should say, so I can't add floats. If it was a string, you can't just do addition on a string. It's not going to add up the way it usually does. So, and I'm going to come up with a new variable called total. So at the beginning of my shopping trip, my total is 0. Then each time I purchase one of these items, I'm going to add it to my total. So I'm going to do total plus equals cost. And then I'm going to print this out at the end. Total, F string, total bill. So my total bill is, I'll add a $sign, is $59.39. So that is how I'd go through this problem. So, so the next problem is, what if you only had $25? So if we only had $25, what would we do? So if you only have $25 and let's say we had to buy the products in this order, you'd want to stop once your total got to $25, right?
Right. So if total bill is, you use a greater than or less than statement.
Yeah, let me move this into a new cell. So if, so you said if total is, and say that one more time, sorry.
Total bill is let me see, less than or equal to 25,
Okay.
right? Because you have 25 bucks.
What do we want to do if it's less than or equal to $25?
You need to stop running.
Okay. So to stop a for loop, you'll hit use a break. Let's try and run this and see what happens. So just kind of going through it, it added cheese to the list. It printed out I need to buy cheese. It costs $2.79. It adds $2.79 to the total, and then it hits this if conditional. So if total, which is $2.79, is less than 25, it stops the for loop.
Oh, so you need to, I see what you're saying. So you need to create somehow a sum of like a running total of your, got to put stuff in the cart first, I guess.
I need to put stuff in the cart first. Okay.
Yeah. So like that's my pseudocode. So
Okay.
you have to, I'm trying to think how you would add something to the cart. Somebody help me.
Yeah. Anybody want to take a shot?
Well, I'm thinking if you just flipped the inequality sign to if the total was greater than 25 for it to stop.
So if greater than 25. So now it goes to 279, 342, 275.
If you made it greater than or equal to, would that fix it?
That'd fix it.
So what's happening right now is
Oh.
it's adding stuff to the total before we're checking, right? So it's adding this last item, then it's checking if the total is greater than 25. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we need to do is check this after, or check this before. And let me break out the calculator. 2.76 plus 3.42. Oh, so this is not being added. So all this, so I want to put this after I check as well. Let me explain this. So first, I want to check if my total is greater than $25, less than or equal to $25. If it isn't, I want to stop the loop. Then I want to print out I need to buy this item, and I want to add this to my total. So now let's run it. And it still didn't run it.
But if you did it opposite, where you use the conditional to control whether or not you add it to your total. So basically saying if the total is less than 25, then add it at the cost and print out what you need.
So like,
Or that, yeah, that works too. Oh, well, I guess that would make sense though, right? Because if we're saying if you're greater than 25, then that's when you break. So if you checked first, if the total, wait, actually, no, take that back. Yeah, no, take that back.
I think I'm gonna have to, this problem is like pretty challenging for some reason. I'm gonna start over on it. So first thing I want to do is I'm gonna add a total to the value, add the cost, and then I want to check if the total is greater than 25. If it hits this condition, I want to subtract costs from the total account, and then I want to break, and then print total. So there it is. Does this problem was a little challenging? Does this who here is confused after watching this problem? Okay.
You could try it one last way, where you don't add the cost yet. First, you check right away if the totals are less than 25. If so, then add. Actually, no, it's sort of the same.
Total is less than 25.
Then although I guess really you'd want to do if total. Actually, you'd probably actually want to do if total plus cost is greater than 25, break, and then change to greater. And then that's what would trigger your break. Otherwise, add total to cost. Sorry, add cost to total. Yep.
Okay. So multiple ways. So basically what we were doing wrong the first time, we needed to, this total plus cost, we weren't checking the total plus. In this case, I'm not checking it, but I'm also subtracting it out of it later. So it was checking it, but then it wasn't actually removing it when it hit that condition. So let me walk through both of these examples. So in this first one, total starts out at 0. It adds each item's cost to it through the loop. Then it hits this first condition, sees to check if the total is greater than $25. If it is greater than $25, we have to put that last item back because we are now over $25. So we removed this item from our basket and we stopped the for loop. Does that make sense?
Can I ask some questions? And I think it does, but I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
So for within the body code, so it says if total greater than 25 colon, and you have that, total minus equals. That's an iterator, the cost. I don't really get how that is deducting that last item. To me, that seems like that should be going all the way back to me, that seems like that should be counting all the way back to the beginning. I don't get how it's just taking that last dollar amount out.
Okay. So let me print the cost, and then I'll print the cost in here so we can kind of see it. And so each time through, it adds 279, it adds 342, it adds 450, it adds 12, and then when it adds the 275, at this point, the total is greater than $25. So it hits this condition, and it takes the, I don't remember what we were at before, but like greater than $25, whatever that total value is, and it subtracts this 275 from it.
So why does it notice stop by taking just one item? Because plus equal means you count all the way, right, beginning to end. Minus equal means you're counting end to, and if everybody else gets it and I'm the only one, then I'll just have to live with it and just accept it. But I don't get, to me, it should be a command to just be minusing one item off, not using this count to be able to go all the way back to the beginning.
So think of minus equal as this total minus cost. So this last cost variable is 275. So that this total is not a list, it's an integer. We're adding values to it. So total starts out at 0, then it becomes 279. So let me print it.
I was just going to say, just to join in on that, I think the confusing part is what it's doing is it's looking at that cost variable, but it's only looking at it for that iteration in that loop, the one time. It's not for every time in the loop that it's going to subtract it.
Right. And so how does it know that? Because it seems like this is like a one-off. Never mind. This is where my brain doesn't operate like the way the computer wants the code to work. I don't know. To me, that's a counting tool. So to me, it seems like it should keep going. It should.
Yeah. Well, so it does. So every time through you're running. So when you start at the top of the loop and it says 4, it's going to go through the list, right? And it's going to add the total. It's going to take the total, that blank slate up at the top, and it's going to hit the first variable, and it's going to add it to that. Right. And then it's going to go through the loop because it hasn't met the condition, because the total isn't $25. And then it goes through the loop again, and it's going to add the second item, right? So once the condition has been met, so the total is greater than 25, it's going to take it out because we gave it that condition. So if you're reading it like English instead of computer jargon, it's going to hit $25 and it's, oh, we're over $25. And on this iteration, it's going to go down 1 and it's going to take the cost off the total. And then once it does that, you break it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Still make no sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I would have not. No, to me it doesn't make sense. But you guys, let's stop. I'll have to go find. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's okay. I just got to find something that explains it different, or I have a misunderstanding of how plus equal and minus equal works. I don't understand how that works. I've got to figure that out. But let's move on. My question.
Who's your instructor? Your instructor is Raphael, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would maybe like next one-on-one, maybe talk with him about what plus equals and kind of go definitely kind of to take a deep dive into like plus equals and minus equals.
And John, that cost, that last cost is only a minus. It's not a minus equals. It's just take it away.
Okay, that makes sense if it is. I thought it said minus equal. Minus.
It did before. So it's sort of a shorthand way of writing the same thing where it says total equals total minus cost. That's equivalent to writing total minus equals cost. So it's a little Python shorthand trick you can pull. So the line at the top where it says total plus equals cost could just as easily say total equals total plus cost. And that's equivalent to Python. It's just like one of the shortcuts Python lets you write if you want to, but they mean the same thing.
Okay, that's where I'm confused because I don't know why they. Okay, wow. Okay.
All right. Good discussion.
I don't think it was. I think they just wasted everybody's time.
No. I think it was useful. So, all right, so now we're going to move on to while loops. So I'm going to run the following code. So what's going on here? We start with a variable called I that is set is equal to 1, and we have a while loop that is going to run until while I is less than 6. So when I becomes 6 or greater, it is going to stop. And each time through, it prints I, and it adds 1 to I. So the first time through, I is equal to 1. It still meets this condition, so it prints I. Then it adds 1, so I is now equal to 2. And it, again, meets this condition, so it prints I. Then it does I is equal to 3. 3 is less than 6, so it prints I. Then 4, and then 5. So that's a while loop. Can be useful as well. You can also write this with like a for loop. I equals 1 with a break statement for let's say just do it range 8. If I is less than 6, print I, else break. So this started with, so a while loop, essentially, how I kind of look at it is essentially like a for loop with a break statement in it. And so it has a condition when to stop the loop. So there are some use cases. In my experience, for loops, in my last job, I was a data scientist at a railroad. I used for loops pretty much all the time. But while loops are definitely useful as well. So run this. I got some similar code here. I want to compare the outputs and why they're different. So one of them has a continue statement. So if I is equal to 3, it prints foo, and then it continues. And this one, if I is equal to 3, it prints foo, and then it breaks. So notice the difference there. Continue, it goes through everything. A break statement, it stops. So in this case, it hits this condition and it stops the loop. In this condition, in this case, it hits this condition and it still continues. So does this make sense? The difference between a break and a continue. Continue, it keeps going through the loop. A break statement, it stops the loop wherever that break statement is. Cool.
Can I ask a quick question? Oh.
Yeah.
If you were to take out the I plus equals 1, it's not going to work?
On these while loops?
Right.
I'll have an infinite loop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, say
okay.
0. And you will want to stop these.
But you still have I don't understand why it would, because your condition is, well, I is less than 6.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a condition?
Yeah.
Because further up you didn't have that, and it worked. It didn't.
Up here.
Yeah, you didn't have a while and then I plus equals 1.
Yeah, I have it down right here.
Oh, you do down there. I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah. While loops are pretty easy to have an infinite loop.
Okay.
So yeah, be careful on those. If you expect your loop to not take that long and it's still running, it's usually because you have an infinite loop. It's good to have some sort of print statement, so to kind of just get a feel for where you're at. Yeah.
And what triggered the infinite loop on that last one? What triggered it?
I removed the I plus equals 1, so I just stays at 0, so it never increases. So I is just continual, it's just 0. Yeah. So it's just 0.
Right. So then your while I is less than 6, then you do your I plus equals 1. So it's going to iterate from 1 to 2, and then your condition is a 3, right? And then you put in your foo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once it hits this if condition.
All right.
Yeah, when I is equal to 3. So I is first is, it starts out at 0. We go through this while loop, we add 1 to it. So if I is equal to 3, we print foo, else, or otherwise, if we hit this condition, we'll print foo, otherwise we'll print this out. So we get 1, 2, and then when it finally hits 3, it does the continue. That makes sense?
It does. But for the while loop, you have to have the plus equals 1. Otherwise, you'll have an infinite loop. But in the for loop, you don't have to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Cool. So now we have nested loops. So nested loops are, I think I got an example here. I don't. Let me just make one real quick. Yeah, let me run this. So this is a nested loop. And well, what's going on here is I have my initial for loop, and this is the start of loop 1. So the first time through this initial for loop through list, this is a really bad choice of variable names. So you'll notice that list is green. That's a protected word in Python, so don't ever name a variable this. Someone set me up for failure. So the first time through this for loop, where we start left to right on a for loop. So the first time through, x is equal to 1. So it prints loop 1 is x. So we are right here. Then it goes through this nested for loop. And before it goes up to the second element in this list 1 for x, it's going to go through all of this for loop. So for y in list 1. So loop 2 prints out 1, then it prints out 2, then it prints out 3, then it prints out 4, then it prints out 5. Then finally it goes to the second element of list 1, prints that out. Then it goes through all the elements in y in list 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then finally it goes up to 3. So it's going to go through this nested for loop the entire way before it goes to the second element in this loop. So, and then once it's done with all this, it's going to go to the third element. Then goes through this again and going to go through the fourth element. Then finally prints loop 5 and goes through all the elements in the inner loop. So that is a nested for loop. If you don't mind me mentioning Alex, Alex had a nested list, which is something that looks like this. And I'm just making these numbers up. So you see it has double square brackets. So if I do a for loop through this, it's just going to print out that first element in this list, and the first element is this right here. So if you want to loop through this, you would need to do a nested for loop. So for now we get each element in that nested for loop. So that first element in my list is this, which is a list. So if you have a list of lists, sometimes you'll have to do these nested for loops. Does this make sense? Are there any questions about nested for loops?
I know I'll have someone I get to actually doing it, because it's one thing to watch it, but when you start struggling through,
Yeah, when I'm doing
the game all changes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Don't try and build it all at once. If you know you're going to need a nested for loop, just start with printing the first element and be like, okay, this is a list. So now I know to get through to each of these elements, I'm going to need to print it out. I usually just build it out line by line and include print statements, so I know what I'm trying to do. If you try and bite off more than you can chew, it usually ends up being a real pain to debug. I think next we're going into functions. So this is an example of a function. So how would I run this function?
Well, you have to.
You would just type it, right? You would just type, say capital, just say hello.
Yep. Very nicely done. So now let's say we wanted to make this, this is kind of a basic function. Maybe we wanted to include some custom text in there, and we wanted to say hello, and then whatever word we type in. How would we do that?
Well, in your print statement, you're going to have an argument.
In my print statement?
Right. Well,
So,
you're in hello, you're going to put, I always put like DF.
hello, DF.
Say hello, DF, and then hello, close quote, period, format, and then I put in DF in the format. But I'm sorry, after hello, you need the squiggly brackets.
Okay. Format, and you say the variable.
Right, and then DF, and then and in the function itself, I put say hello, DF.
Okay, yeah.
And then say hello, I put in Michael.
Okay.
See if it works.
Very nicely done. Now, what if, and I think it actually asked this, what if we don't pass in any arguments? Am I going to get an error here when I do this?
No, because you're telling it to put in Michael. I mean, it's just not going to do anything because you don't have an argument.
Mm-hmm. It will throw an error. It says missing one required positional argument. So one way around this is you can have a default argument. So I could do, I'm doing this wrong. I could set df equal to a default argument. So maybe the default argument is Michael. So if I make it this blank, it'll say hello, Michael. But if I set it equal to Jeff, it'll be hello, Jeff. So that way, if someone doesn't put anything in there, and maybe there's something really common, it'll print out hello, Michael instead. Does that make sense? Does default this syntax make sense? Putting in a default argument.
Yes.
So we did all that.
Hey, I have a question on that. Really, if you go back up, using that default argument, could you put that in just about any other, I'm trying to think another example where you would put a default response, like let's say printing, or I'm trying to think where else you could pop that in, but maybe no. I just asked it and answered it myself. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, functions. I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head, that's kind of the example that I would use it for. We'll go into object-oriented programming a little bit later, but there's some examples there. But at this stage, don't worry about that. Cool. Now, what if we wanted to run a function, take its output and put it in another function? So I'm going to make a function, add one, and it's going to take a number, and I can make it a default argument as well. And I could return number plus one. So if I run this, and I make it nothing, it's going to return 1. If I put 11, it's going to return 12. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Not too much going on there. And then I'm going to make another argument, or another function called times 5. And times 5. So 0 if I don't put in any arguments. If I put 5, it's going to return 25. So if I want to take the output of add 1 and I want to put it in the as the input for times 5, what I can do is I'm just going to make a variable, add 1, and so I have this variable add 1, so it's 16 plus 1, which is 17. And then I could put this in my other function times 5. So 17 times 5 is 85.
Whoa, that's cool. Nobody else thinks it's cool. Everyone's just staring at that. I think that's cool.
I'm glad you appreciate that. Cool. Any questions or anything? I do have a little challenge. If you care to partake. So write a function. So what we just went over starts with a DEF. Write a function to multiply all the numbers in a list. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging than the functions that I wrote. It's going to take in a list. You'll probably, since we're going to multiply all the numbers in a list, we might need to do a for loop. So yeah, give that a try. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and then I'm going to go over it, how I would do it. All right, it has been 2 minutes. I'm going to share my way of going about this. So I'm going to start with writing my function. It takes in a single argument numbers, which is going to be a list. So I'm going to start with a variable called total. So this is going to be all my numbers multiplied together. And with when you start with like when you start with a variable, like when we add it together, we start with 0. But if we start with 0 with multiplication, we're going to multiply 0 times the number, which is 0, and then multiply 0 times the number, and you'll end up with 0. So you can't do that with multiplication. So I'm going to start with 1. and then I'm gonna loop through my list for X and numbers. And then I'm gonna do that kind of funny syntax again. So we could do total times X. So each time through, add multiply X times the total. And then that Python shorthand, I could do times equals X. And then I want to return total. Cool. So let's try this out. And if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I get 120. Any questions about this? Was anybody able to solve this?
No, I didn't solve it. Did anybody solve it?
I didn't have enough time.
So unpack that one more time, real slow, because I'm still like, I almost get it. So you're you create your function, you're pulling from a list of numbers, you create something to start from, a starting point, and then you create your for loop that takes the function, it pulls from that list.
Yeah, so first time through, X is equal to 1. So total is equal to 1, so it does total times 1, and then it goes through again, and total is equal to 1, and for X and numbers, X is equal to 2 at this point, so it does 1 times 2, so total at this point is 2. Then the third time through the for loop, X is equal to 3, so it does 2 times 3, gets 6. The fourth time through the for loop, X is equal to 4, so it does 4 times 6 is 24, and then the fifth time through the for loop, X is equal to 5. And oh, very nice, James. I like how you set the set the total at the beginning with the first element.
Yeah, I didn't even think about total equals 1, which makes sense. I don't know, but it just never occurred to me. It just shows you there's a million ways to skin a cat if you're coding.
Because I was thinking of like doing this like with an numpy array and then just timesing the array. So you wouldn't even have to write a for loop. So I was just like create a numpy array, then take that array and times it times the numbers that you.
We haven't covered NumPy yet, so but yeah, that's a great way to do it too.
So and if you wanted to just not multiply them but add them all together, then it would be total equals 0, right? And then the total would be plus equals X.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you could just create a list and then do sum, right?
I don't think you can sum a list. I might be wrong though. And then just sum.
I think
I would just go like at the beginning, I'd assign that, make it a variable, right? So go list 1 equals. Okay, and then the next line, just try and go sum, and then put that in my variable and see what happens.
Oh, there you go, nice.
I am learning something. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, awesome. No, this is good. Any questions before we wrap up?
I like this cohort, guys.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you're joining.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join. I appreciate it. This is something that I need to like work on over and over and over. It doesn't really come natural, so I need to like go do code wars or something where I just work on for loops and functions over and over and over and over. So thank you.
Yeah, no. It was a pleasure having everybody. Definitely saw some people I've never met before, or met some people I've never met before. So this was good. I'll have the recording up probably tomorrow. I usually try and include a link to the GitHub repo with this notebook if you want to go through it. And if you have any more questions about it or anything, feel free to DM me. For those that are normally attend my study groups, I'm going to be on vacation a little bit later this week, so I'm moving the normal study group till tomorrow in the afternoon. I know it's not ideal, but I'm going to be recording it, so if anyone's available, I'd love to have you there. But yeah, have a great night, everybody. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, I like the afternoon study groups, man. Takes the pressure off trying to get it through it all day, and then it just sinks everything in.
Awesome. Well, I'll look forward to you being there at least.
Yeah,
Jeff,
I'll show up. I'm gonna try this on.
3.
Say that again.
That study group's at 3 tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, I'm on Pacific time.
Yeah.
The study group's Eastern 6 p.m.
It is. I thought it's
in the morning.
I think you posted it at 12.
I'm on Pacific time too, Alex. Hi.
Hi.
I thought I made it for 11 a.m. Central time. If that means anything. Yeah, 11 a.m. Central time. So 9 a.m. Pacific, and 12 p.m. Eastern.
Nice. I didn't even look at it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, see ya.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.